Modern science fiction prides itself as a vehicle for progress. However, it must contend with one essential moral question. How much progress is too much progress? I'm Prala.
I'm Teresa Shea.
I'm Michael Smith.
And I'm MaryShelley.
And today we'll be considering MaryShelley, the mother of the modern Prometheus.
Now let us begin with some background on MaryShelley. First of all, she was the daughter of two of Britain's literary titans, women's rights advocate Mary Wollstonecraft, who wrote A Vindication of the Rights of Woman, and William Godwin, a political anarchist who wrote The Adventures of Caleb Williams. Furthermore, she was the wife of famous romantic poet Percy Bysshe Shelley. Throughout her life, MaryShelley was constantly plagued by tragedy, from the death of her mother at birth to the loss of her firstborn child. Ultimately, Shelley took these influences and channeled them into Frankenstein, where she examines the complexities of life, from its creation to its manipulation and ultimately its termination.
Shelley not only looked to her personal life for influences on her writing, but to the movements of the past and of her time. Frankenstein is classified as a romantic novel because of its emphasis on knowledge being a corrupting force and emotion's dominance over knowledge. Because of this, we can say that the book is a critique of Enlightenment values. Now, the Enlightenment held that knowledge was the most important tool humans had for the betterment of society. So the conflict between these two ideologies, as seen in the picture, can be described as a matter between heart and mind. Shelley, during her time, saw the Enlightenment take form in scientific advancements, such as the smallpox vaccine and the locomotive. It was these inventions and others that caused people to think and even believe that man could conquer all of nature and even death itself. Additionally, the Industrial Revolution was occurring during this time. Shelley believed that the Industrial Revolution was the cause of the breakdown of the family. Before the Industrial Revolution, all of the family members had a prominent role within the economy under the cottage industry system. Each member, including the father, the mother, and all of the children, had an important role in making products such as textiles in Britain. The Industrial Revolution destroyed the system where it was usually the fathers who went out to work, the mothers who stayed home, and the children who stayed home or they went to work somewhere. Taking in all of these influences, Shelley criticizes the knowledge-focused philosophy of the Enlightenment and its effects in her time by asking, how far can scientific progress go?
All of these influences led Shelley to write her most famous work, which we'll be focusing on today, Frankenstein. It's a very common work, and it's actually been used in many modern pieces. Our research focused mostly on the trope of man playing God, which Shelley focuses on through Frankenstein, and also seeing that trope appear in modern science fiction. Our research led us to the following conclusion. Contemporary science fiction continues to draw inspiration from Shelley's exploration of man playing God through through technology in Frankenstein, because her approach reflects humanity's anxiety concerning developing science.
Like Prometheus of the ancient Greek mythos steals God's power of fire for humanity's use, the theme of man playing God is personified by a modern Prometheus, who attempts to obtain God's power via scientific innovation. This personification is the mad scientist archetype, a sci-fi archetype that cautions humanity about the dangers of science. However, this archetype doesn't place the dangers of science within the actual technological and scientific advancements themselves, rather within man's own heart. This archetype illustrates the evil that exists within man's heart, namely greed and pride, and how science can both empower and bring out those evils. Frankenstein is not only considered the first science fiction novel, it is also considered the first mad scientist narrative, as it details Victor Frankenstein's attempt to play God. Frankenstein's titular character is the epitome of the mad scientist archetype. Victor's greed is highlighted through his obsession to gain knowledge of the metaphysical soul. Since a young age, Victor Frankenstein has been obsessed with God's power. As a child, he would look out his window in awe as lightning decimated tree stumps, and he would read alchemy legends pertaining to the Philosopher's Stone or healing elixirs. This fascination translated with him into medical school, and continued with him into medical school and translated into a desire to control life itself, a power previously reserved only for God. This desire manifested itself in his creation of the creature, a horrific amalgamation of different corpses' body parts brought together via lightning. This was Victor's attempt to play God, a comparison obvious even to the creature. Upon reading Milton's Paradise Lost, which details the fall of man, the creature automatically identifies with the situation of an omnipotent God warring with his creatures. The creature at first sees himself in humanity, as humanity was created by God, as the creature was created by Victor. However, God's treatment of his creation differs significantly from Victor's. God allowed humanity to exist alongside them in the Garden of Eden, and even took on a parental role within humanity's existence. However, upon creation, the creature was automatically abandoned by Victor. It was then that the creature began to identify more with Satan in the story, as Satan was cast out by God into hell. However, even Satan is not completely alone, as Satan has fellow demons, or other creatures like him, to keep him company. It is here that we see that the creature is entirely isolated, as there is no other life form like the creature in existence. Therefore, this shows how Victor failed at being able to play God, and that his attempts were nothing but a mere imitation, as he left the creature to be completely rejected by society at every level.
This rejection of the creature by society at every level stands in stark contrast with the other social wretch in the story, Elizabeth. Elizabeth Frankenstein was an orphan who was adopted by the Frankenstein family and was brought into society through that family. She takes on a traditional romantic era feminine role in the story, which was the classic time period of Mary Shelley's writing. This role shows that she was able to integrate perfectly within the societies around her, specifically her household and the people with whom she interacted. However, the creature was, as Ashley mentioned, completely rejected by society, not only just by the people with whom it tried to interact, but also Frankenstein himself. The creator of the creature himself realized that this creature was an abomination as soon as he made it. The creature was actually brought to life artificially and attempted to integrate into society artificially, through books and other things that it managed to find around, because Victor Frankenstein completely abandoned it. However, Elizabeth's integration into society was guided by God's hand, as she was basically adopted, and it was completely up to fate. The outcomes of the two differed greatly. So Elizabeth clearly was able to integrate into her society and was able to interact with people around her. The creature, however, faced an internal anarchy. At one point, at his inception, he held society and humanity at highest esteem. He believed that it was the pinnacle of existence. However, each time he tried to enter society, he was rejected, not only by his creator, but also by everybody and everything that he interacted with, including the book Paradise Lost. The outcome of this was a complete reversal of the roles of society in his mind. He realized that while he might act human and while he might think like a human, he could never be human, and therefore there was an internal anarchy, the idea that her father, Mary Shelley's father, William God, had been introduced. The anarchy that was within him was essentially extrapolated to the outside world when he went on a rampage, destroying the town and bringing about lots of death and destruction. The mob that attempted to stop the creature is an example of human imperfection, where the humans were completely misunderstanding the creature's internal anarchy. However, Elizabeth's almost seamless integration to her society, guided by God's hand, stands again in stark contrast with the creature's complete failure to integrate within society, showing that Victor Frankenstein failed in his attempts to mimic God.
Overall, Mary Shelley's use of man playing God exposes ethical questions concerning how society views life. Through Victor, readers are able to analyze the consequences of attempting to control natural processes. By examining the ways Victor fails in tampering with life, Shelley clearly presents the dangers of man imitating the divine. In unveiling these ideas, Shelley implores humanity to evaluate how science encroaches upon God's domain. And science fiction writers continue to challenge society to question the unintended consequences of technological progress. One such rendition of the ideas presented in Frankenstein can be seen in the movie Ex Machina, in which the creature is represented by AI, or artificial intelligence. This version continues to mirror Frankenstein as it chronicles the development and rejection of a sentient artificial being. In Frankenstein, the creature argues that his social rejection is both cruel and arbitrary, as he can both think and behave as any human. And he demonstrates his ability to be cunning when he frames an innocent woman to take the blame for him killing an innocent boy. In Ex Machina, the lines between real and synthetic are further blurred as the android Ava proves its ability to outsmart and deceive the humans that interact with her. She even goes as far as to be able to convince a human man to fall in love with her. By presenting the human capabilities of artificial life, both the creature and the android Ava incite uneasiness towards animated life and its potential to undermine man. This reveals humanity's fear of the deceptive nature of knowledge.
Humans must also ponder the consequences of molding life according to what society wants. In the book, Victor makes the monster out of all sorts of body parts from dead corpses and puts it together, and you get the monster. How he makes it to what society wants is he takes all of the most beautiful parts that he finds, and that becomes the monster. As we've explained earlier, the end result is just utter chaos and destruction. So this brings up the idea of genetic engineering, where genetic engineering can be seen as playing God by changing the genetic traits that humans can exhibit. Some opponents even argue that genetic engineering can come to a point where it can change the thinking of humans and limit personal choices. One good example we found of genetic engineering going to this end is the character of General Zod from the movie Man of Steel. Now, in the movie, Zod is the culmination of Krypton's genetic engineering. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, every person on Krypton is genetically engineered to think a certain way and to have a specific role in society. By this, Krypton has sacrificed personal choices of the individuals for societal wants. This lack of choice and limited thinking leads Zod to try to attempt a coup against the Kryptonian government and eventually bring chaos and destruction when he fights Superman on Earth in Metropolis. It's clear to see then that Zod is equivalent to the creature. Both are genetically engineered or built, if you will, according to what society wants, and the end result is pure anarchy. So from this and the social wretch ideas that Prahlad presented, we thought, well, who could Elizabeth in the story be? And we thought that it was Superman, because both are born naturally and they integrate seamlessly into society after proving themselves, of course. And it can be seen as God's hand at work. Now, while this example of Zod and genetic engineering can be extreme given our capabilities of genetic engineering right now, this same idea still remains in Frankenstein and Man of Steel to warn us. People have anxiety over genetic engineering due to the possibility of creating an abomination when perfection is the desired goal.
Another moral question that science fiction has to contend with is the responsibility for the creatures that are created. Victor Frankenstein, does not take the responsibility for his creature. He creates the creature and immediately realizes that it's an abomination. However, he decides not to kill it after considering it. His decision not to kill it has dire consequences. Primarily, when the creature goes on his rampage and actually brings destruction and, in fact, death, the creature's actions are morally placed on Frankenstein's shoulders. Victor Frankenstein himself feels morally responsible for the destruction that his creature caused. As an example of this in modern science fiction is the example of Jurassic Park, where Dr. Hammond, who masterminded the idea of taking mosquito DNA and using it to recreate the dinosaurs that once lived on Earth, he feels a moral responsibility for what happens when the dinosaurs actually break loose and start killing people. However, when Dr. Hammond realized the destructive potential of the dinosaurs early on in the project, he didn't take action and didn't take responsibility for what he knew was a possibility. Similarly, Victor Frankenstein in the novel understood that what he was creating, as he was creating it, understood that it might not be what he wanted it to be. He realized that it actually could be an abomination, and when he finished, he realized that it was. In fact, later, Victor actually kills the bride that he tries to make for Frankenstein because he realizes that could be even more of an abomination than what he had already created. However, neither Victor nor Dr. Hammond takes responsibility at the right time for the creation that they made. And this leads us to the question of whether humans should have the ability to terminate the life that they create. The unfortunate detail is that both for the dinosaurs and for the creature, what ultimately led to their anarchy was the perception of them by society and the treatment of them by society. Frankenstein was rejected on every level, and the dinosaurs weren't treated well enough to really behave, and they weren't really treated as if they were domestic animals. They were treated like they were in the wild. The Earth was not capable really of having the dinosaurs on it because, again, we've developed since the dinosaurs. So the concept that's brought up there is whether we have control over the life that we create, and the moral question that we have to answer is, should we have the ability to terminate such life?
The creation, manipulation, and termination of life, these ideas that we presented, are not new ordeals in of themselves. These same ideas of controlling life presented in the classical myths of Prometheus even confounded the Greeks 2,000 years ago. But the questions of this ethical quandary, of technological process was brought back to prominence by Mary Shelley in her landmark novel. Her reflection on technological process and how far it can go and the impact it has on science fiction is only proof of the timelessness of these questions throughout the ages and into the future. It is only thanks to her that this theme is so prominent in modern science fiction and has become one of its founding cornerstones. Thank you.